They Call Us Enemies by George Takei is a novel centered around George's childhood experience within the Japanese American internment during World War II. And during the book, there are various evolutions and significant moments of the characters, like George and his parents. First, we have his parents and what they represent. George's parents were both Japanese immigrants who worked as seamstresses in California, and they decided to name their children after powerful figures, which reflects a hope for assimilation and success within America. But that did not go as planned, as they were sent to the internment camp after the war started. During the internment, his parents took different characteristics on. His mother was very proactive and protective. She even smoked in her sewing machine, trying to keep their lives as normal as possible. But then later she took back and renounced her citizenship, trying to gain any sense of agency that she had left. While, in contrast, his father was initially depressed when he came to the camp, but he tried to turn that bad into good by becoming a leader within the block and becoming the block manager, and his ability to speak both Japanese and English allowed him to bridge generational and cultural divides, which was his coping mechanism. But additionally, his father was a complex character because during the internment period, his father was not resistant. He kind of tried to not make much noise, but when George got older, he was upset that his father didn't resist. But then later George understood, and he realized that his father's quiet and strategic compliance was his form of survival within a system which is designed to make them fail. And now the main character, George, he had a massive transition from innocence to activism and being involved within society. As a kid, he was confused and manipulated often. As a child, he was manipulated by both the guards and boys, trying to, I guess, make himself look cool. He said Sanka Beach, which to the guards, which kind of sounds in his accent, son of a bee. And he was told lies during the internment camp to justify the confinement. He was told that the razor wires and barbed wire surrounding the block was to protect the people inside from the dinosaurs, highlighting how fake propaganda shaped the young minds. He did evolve as a person, and after the internment, he faced discrimination in school, and was forced to be patriotic by saying like the Pledge of Allegiance, which shaped his identity as a young child. But he knew within his heart that this was not who he was, and his books and education became his source of empowerment, thanks to a missionary who brought literature to him. After his education and his interest into books, he became a public figure in activism. He even met with MLK, Eleanor Roosevelt, and joining Star Trek, which symbolizes the reclaiming of his voice. And his additional political involvement and legal victory against the U.S. government reflects a full circle moment back to when he used to be a kid and manipulated by the government. But beyond the characters reflecting the themes, there was symbolism within certain aspects. The internment camps were not just physical prisons, but psychological prisons, as their identity, trust, and dignity was stripped away. They were handed cards that had their number and they were tagged like cattle. And the government's logic is flawed by their saying that the absence of evidence is evidence of guilt, which reveals the dangerous power that the government has. But then there was also symbolism within the generational conflict between George and his father. George's view of his father went from disappointment to his father not resisting to empathy. Understanding why his father didn't do what he did mirrors a reckoning with how different generations resist oppression. The last piece of symbolism was resilience and cultural survival. Despite the trauma, the family persevered and made the best of their situation. The mother continued sewing. The father he became a block manager, but not only did they keep any resilience of their house, of where they were before they were taken, they also preserved their culture, such as the sewing and the language spoken, showing their resistance to being erased, and they ultimately reclaimed their place in American society. Overall, the story was not just about George, it's about the resilience of the community and the complexity of survival under a oppressed dictatorship-ish government. The characters evolved from hopeful immigrants to victims of state violence, and finally to be agents of change and remembrance.